Good evening. I'll call to order this meeting of the Park Committee for Wednesday, October 25th, 2017. It's 5 p.m. We have present Alderman John Vandeleest, Alderman Chris Weary, and myself, Alderman David Nennig. Alderman Nicholson called and asked to be excused. He may be here later in the meeting, but at this point we'll note that he's excused. First thing is approval of minutes of the meeting of October 11th, 2017.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Vandeleest.
I'll make a second with a request that we
Okay.
mark me being absent to excused.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I think there was just
We,
miscommunication.
Alderman Weary did call me and clarify that he did ask to be excused from the last meeting, so we will correct that. Okay?
Thanks.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All with that correction, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? No. Motion by Alderman Vandeleest, second by Alderman Weary to adopt the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item is consideration with possible action on the report by city staff summarizing what recommendations have been implemented or not implemented in the Green Bay, Wisconsin Comprehensive Waterfront Plan from 1995. And we did receive copies of that whole plan from 1995 to refresh our memories. And then in front of us is a summary of the findings from the staff. So, Dan?
Okay, so as you just summarized.
I got an extra copy.
Did you get a copy of this?
Yeah.
Just now.
Oh, okay.
Did you have the original one?
Yeah.
You have an extra one?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
So at the last park committee, staff was directed to complete the report summarizing the recommendations of the waterfront plan and note if the recommendations were implemented or not implemented. So we worked jointly with the planning department to kind of go through the report and summarize it. And that's what you'll see in front of you. In the waterfront plan, there's both general recommendations and specific recommendations for areas along the waterway throughout the city. The general recommendations relate to trails, railroad corridors, bridges, buildings, and structures, parking lots, signage, landscaping, land use controls, special activities, waterfront development management, and parkway category classifications. These items were very general recommendations throughout the city, and we would have to determine if these recommendations were followed through on a case-by-case basis. It's likely that there are areas that have been developed where the recommendations, the general recommendations, were not followed, and there's probably also areas where the general recommendations were followed. The waterfront development plan also defines 14 areas within the city where specific recommendations were made to help guide the development of the waterfront. And in this report, we focused on these specific areas and listed all of the recommendations for each of the 14 areas and stated if the recommendations were implemented or not implemented. So there's a lot of information here. They made a lot of recommendations. You'll have to kind of read this out over on your own, and if you have additional questions, we can talk about it, or if you have questions on specific areas, we can talk about those individual ones. So basically at the last park committee, access to the waterways and lack of preserving green space in the downtown were stated as a primary concern. Almost the entire east bank of the Fox River has been redeveloped since the plan was written in 1995. But since then, the Fox River Trail, City Deck, and the Porlier Bridge have been built and preserved as parkland, with several locations for public access along the bank. Several old buildings, a parking ramp, and surface parking lots were also removed and replaced with residential developments, along with a waterfront greenway trail and parkland. Portions of the West Bank also have been developed since the plan was written. Light Memorial Park was constructed, and the shipyard is currently in the planning phase. Both West Side developments do incorporate trails and public access to the waterway. Just as a side note, staff did compare the park open space plan from 1997 to the 2014 park open space plan. And the amount of, what's interesting is the amount of parkland along the Fox River roughly tripled from 9.47 acres in 1997 to 28.84 acres in 2014. This increase in acreage was largely due to the addition of Light Memorial Park and also the property acquisitions that were needed to build the Fox River Trail. In the near downtown, there is also a lot of momentum to create the East River Trail connection. Over the last 5 years, the city's been purchasing waterfront properties and removing the buildings to create a new waterfront greenway with a trail that will link the Fox River to the East River Trail. So we're going to turn a lot of older commercial structures into open parkland along the East River. And in addition to that, the Parks Department just received a grant, as you all know, to construct a canoe kayak launch along the East River Trail with a proposed trail to provide waterfront access to that greenway where currently there is no access available. So, I mean, there's a lot of recommendations in here. If you have specific questions for any specific area, we can go through those. But I would say in general, most of the recommended actions were implemented or are in process. Not all of them, obviously. There's a lot of different recommendations out there. There are some areas where the recommendations were not followed also. But I would say in general, most of them were implemented or in process.
Okay. Committee, have any questions? I'm going to ask Alderman Zima for your comments on it. I know you just got this tonight, but are
I
there...
just wonder if you could hold us to your next meeting.
Sure.
Give us a chance to review this.
Yeah, I think one of the issues here is, are there some new recommendations that you or others may want added to it? And if there are, we can certainly talk about it.
What were the specific ones that were absolutely not fulfilled? Any major?
Well, like I said, there's several in here. Some of them were over by Ken Ewers. We can go through each one, they're all listed here. One of the recommendations by Ken Ewers was to increase the parkway from 35 feet to 50 to 75 feet. That parkway is still at 35 feet, that's where the gravel trail is. Another one was WPS had some concerns with continuing the trail further towards their property. So that trail has not been developed for those reasons. That trail.
I wondered if there was any areas like, for instance, I was thinking across Adams Street, farther down the river, we haven't really utilized that land at all. I'm not sure if we own it. Thought we might have bought it at one time.
By Adams Street along which waterway? I'm sorry, I'm not.
Well, along the Fox River. There.
Along the Fox River.
Right near the water department there.
Oh, okay. Over by where that, over by the Porlier Pier, just north of that a little bit, right by Mason Street.
Is there? We don't have any areas where people can go and have a picnic, or even Light Park is not really set up for that. Maybe it's something we can think about. But because that's just more of a meeting grounds.
Yeah, that was one of the
grounds.
that was one of the general recommendations, was to increase parkland wherever possible in the downtown area and to create picnic areas. And so that would be one of the general recommendations that, you know, on a case-by-case basis could be improved, yeah.
Well, you know, we did take away Flatley Park, where a lot of employees used to go eat their lunch. You know, when my wife worked downtown, she often went there. And, you know, we didn't really replace that. But I guess I'm looking for more public access where people might come and spend the afternoon, maybe grill or whatever. But I'd like a chance to read this.
Sure.
And you can just hold it to your next agenda
Okay.
and address it in your next meeting.
Was there anyone else that wanted to comment on this issue? No. Ask for a motion by the committee.
Motion to hold for a month or further review.
Until the next meeting?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Vanderleest, seconded by Alderman Weary to hold this issue till the next meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If there are any, maybe we'll note in the minutes that if there are other council members that would like to see this report, we can just get it from the staff.
If you want, I could put it in each one's mailbox.
That's probably a good idea. Or we could hand it out at the council meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2 is consideration with possible action on hiring an architect to design restrooms and a central walk at Red Smith Park. Alderperson Dorff, did you see the map?
I didn't see
You were
that.
given
I saw that.
an extra copy? Yeah.
I saw the agenda item.
Okay, does anybody else need a copy? No? Okay. Okay, Dan?
No one.
Or Donnie?
In 2017, the city council allocated $185,000 for the excess sales tax funds to go toward adding these restrooms to the open shelter at Red Smith Park. In 2017, the city council bonded an additional $75,000 of funding to install an ADA accessible central walkway through the park. The city will have to hire an architect firm to complete the engineering documents to be bidded out. Staff sent the request for proposals to 5 architectural firms. Only one of them responded with a quote, which was Dimension 4, and they quoted $21,400. Staff has worked with this company on several other projects, and they are qualified to do this work. Staff would recommend that we award this to Dimension 4 for $21,400.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, Alderperson Zimmer?
Well, is it that complicated that you have to have an architect to, we haven't built any other bathrooms, I know there's different leads, different ways up and all that sort of thing, but it seems to me, we could put the $20,000 toward the project rather than.
In order to
If I want to put in a bathroom in my house, I call up a contractor, he comes and gives me a quote, and
Yeah, in order for us to get a building permit, I believe that it's required to have somebody stamp the drawings, and then it gets in, the plans get reviewed and approved by the inspection department.
we're talking about a couple of bathrooms.
Correct, yes.
That's $21,000. It just seems very high to me.
Alderperson Dorff?
I am trusting that you are doing what you need to do. I would think that if you could have gotten it for less, that you would have been looking at, did you?
Well, like Donnie mentioned, we did send it to 5 architecture firms, only one of them submitted a quote package.
Okay.
Yeah. And this
does
is
this
to,
seem like to be in line with other things you've done?
I think it's comparable. I mean, it's not a very big project, but there's a lot of elements to it. There's electrical, there's plumbing, there's ventilation, there's structural. A survey has to be done so that walkway is built so that it's ADA compliant and doesn't trap water in the park. So it sounds very simple, but there's a lot of complicated elements to it, and those all have to be addressed in the construction plans. So basically, they're creating the plans and specs so we can hire a contractor, and they're building it to code and to spec.
And I've walked through that park so many times, and there's the slanty hill, and then there's the low-lying areas where it's always squishy, filled with water. There are going to be some challenges, I think, with the walkway, definitely. So you're going to need somebody that can look at that and to make that walkway ADA compliant and to make it so it's not getting flooded all the time in those certain areas. So you're right, it's complicated. It's not like just putting a walkway into a flat piece of land, because it's not really flat out there. It's like spooky like that.
Looks like a pretty good location, kind of central in the park for the shelter.
Well, that's where the shelter is already.
For the
We're just adding
addition,
the
yeah.
bathrooms.
Okay.
Yeah. It's perfect, and that walkway, people are gonna love it, because it's so hard to walk from the parking lot or to push a stroller or a wagon or anything. There's just no way to get anywhere without going over a lot of grass. So this is really gonna be great.
Okay, any other discussion? Anyone have any comments on it?
One other question.
Okay, Alderman
I'd like to
Canada.
ask Mr. Grenier if his department could actually do the architectural phase of it, or is it that part of your title? It's not? Okay, I understand that. Okay, that's all I got for any question. Thank you.
From your experience, Steve, do you think this is a reasonable bid?
I've not seen anything of this.
Okay, $21,400
For a bathroom?
for the
Bathroom addition?
bathroom
And
and
the
walkway.
ADA.
And you, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Alderman Weary, seconded by Alderman Van Lees to approve the recommendation to award the architectural work for Red Smith Park to Dimension 4 for $21,400. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Third is presentation and review of the proposed 2018 Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department budget. So we're not going to act on it tonight, but
No,
this is
we're
here
just
for
information.
information to inform the committee and everyone else present what's in it.
Every year at this park committee, we always address the budget and give you some informational pieces of what's happening with the budget for the Parks Department this year. As you all know, we have 9 divisions in the Park Department. We have City Hall, Admin, Triangle, Recreation, Parks, Pools, Forestry, Wildlife. Bay Beach is not part of the 101 fund. There's sometimes seems to be some people on the council that are confused about that, but Bay Beach is its own fund. It's not part of the 101. In 2007, our revenue was budgeted at $799,913. Our 2018 proposal is $13,788 less. And let me explain that. We lost $18,000 of revenue from the county for Triangle Sports. We're in the process of trying to, as we know from bringing it to the park committee, that we are trying to get the county to donate that land to us. In lieu of that, then the $18,000 of their payment would go away. So that is still being negotiated by our attorneys as we speak. But if you see the drop in the revenue, that was where we ended up. Our revenue total was $13,788, so you can see that we made up another $4,212 in other areas as well to try to soften that blow a little bit. Our net increase in our 2017 budget was $7,930,740. Our proposed budget in 2018 net expense is $8,204,241. This is a net increase of $273,509. Included in this total is a proposed budget to operate Coburn. We left that in depending on what happens with the bids. It does not include the 4K Wildlife Sanctuary expansion this year because the building isn't there yet. Hopefully by next year we'll be including that as part of the budget. And then as I just talked about, we removed the $18,000 for a Triangle. Where is the expenses coming? Well, out of the $273,501, $245,916 is salaries, benefit and salaries increases. That included the step increases, included the money from the new pay plan. We did not add any new positions to our budget. In the area of overtime, there's a $10,000 increase, and we added to pay holiday pay on 3 holidays. We found out that we are the only department that is not doing that for people that work holidays. And to be fair to our employees, we're trying to do that as well. So that was the increase there. In the area of seasonal salaries, as you remember last year, we upped those in steps. And this year, it was proposed that we should do it again and do a 50-cent increase to step increases. The reason for that is we weren't keeping up and keeping seasonal employees. We're having a really hard time hiring people and letting them stay. But due to the tight budget this year, that 50 cents was not included in the increase. So they got a 2%, but they did not get the step increases for the seasonal employees in this budget. So that left us with $27,585 that we increased our budget. Out of that, 10,000, we're looking for, we budgeted an extra 10,000 in City Hall, and this is because we have to replace boiler parts. Both of our boilers in City Hall are from 1956, and we're going to have to do some repair work there. The remaining 12,585 includes an increase to chemicals and EAB in our forestry to offset the total. And we also went through line item by line item and eliminated $53,625 so that we could make up part of our payroll increases for payrolls and salaries. So you can see totally, we are about $203,000 down from our last year's budget. And I'll explain the remaining amount in a minute. So the revenue was $13,788. We're down, and we went up in revenue $3,520 in forestry as we added our arbor trees and our garden plots. In pools concessions, we went down 58, and in wildlife, we added about 750 because we're going to do a whole yoga program out there throughout the season. So that should help. Now, the next thing we always talk about here is fees and charges, and you know that master list that we have. That's everything that's from basketball league to a rental, park rental, to swim lessons, the whole shebang. So in the areas of fees and charges, we are proposing Triangle Chalet go up from $225 to $230. It's a $5 increase in the rental fee. The showmobile, the operator fee on Monday through Friday is $45 to $50, and on the weekends $60 to $70. And that is to offset the labor costs of our staff having to be there and run the showmobile. In forestry, the garden plots are going from $25 to $40, and we found that we were the lowest amount around for communities. Most communities are at $40. So we're just going up to the current rate of the metropolitan area. Pool rentals from $36 to $40. Our family pass will go up $10, and the non-resident will go up $10 as well to offset the regular family pass. Our pom-pom fees will go from $15 to $20, and our costume fees will go from $45 to $50. And that is the only changes in the fees and charge schedule for the budget. Regarding fees and charges, the city has formed a committee now to review and establish fees and charges for all the services provided by the city for special events. This is not just the park committee on this committee, it is all departments within the city. Because as you know, and I've told you this figure before, we have gone from 86 to 189 special events. Just the product, like garbage bags and all that kind of stuff alone, plus, firemen and Steve's crews for going out and putting all these barriers up and everything. So we're trying to come up with what that looks like. There are a number of cities like Oshkosh that is in the process of this as well. It's a cool problem because we're growing and people are coming to the city, but along with that comes finances to make those events go. So we'll be bringing that back to you at a future park committee meeting. Not soon, but within maybe 4 or 5 months for you guys to review and put your input in there. In the area of equipment replacement, in 2017, our total was $522,071. It was $289 in parks, and forestry was $193, and wildlife sanctuary had $40,000. When we proposed our budget for this year, we asked for $499,388. And we already were requested to make cuts to that. So we lost $150,000 from the total that we proposed. So our new total is $349,388. So basically, that's a quick overview of what we're submitting from the Parks Department. We did a pretty thorough review, as you can tell, by what the figures were that I just gave to you, which included, already losing some equipment and already cutting $53,000 from operations already. So we feel we gave you a good budget and we submitted a responsible budget. Any questions?
I have two. I presume that since we're budgeting for the operational expenses for Colburn for the full year,
Mhm.
that we're also budgeting revenue
Correct,
as if it were.
correct. That's in that total that I gave you.
Yeah, okay. And the other question is, is there any preliminary information on bonding requests for the park department for next year?
No, I haven't gotten to that. I'm trying to get to the budget first.
Okay. Okay, any questions?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Donnie. Are there any services affected from last year? Did we change, or programs, services or
No.
programs
No.
changed at all?
Well, programs change because, as you know, every year some programs go.
Yeah.
And then we
Right.
don't run them, and then ones we've been running for 3 or 4 years, we want to do something new. So then we alternate those funds, but basically the dollars are the same.
As far as, the budget didn't affect any of the services or programs, we didn't have to
Not at this point,
eliminate.
but I'm going to tell you, if you cut more, it's going to happen. That's going to happen. Now, remember, if you cut programs, you also cut revenue. So it doesn't do any a whole lot of good to cut programs, if you got to cut the revenue, you're still putting yourself in the hole.
Would it be possible to get your initial budget request?
I don't have control over that. That would have to go through the mayor's office.
Well, I already did that. I already asked our finance director, and that was about 2 weeks ago, and supposedly there's no way to get us those numbers, but.
Well, I think the finance director reported at finance committee last night that, and maybe Alderman Story can shed some light on it, that they are going to give us something in our budget book that shows the department's original requests and,
Okay.
and where it is now.
Yeah,
Is
that'd
that
be
correct?
perfect. Okay, well, then that would be good. You know, the unadulterated initial
Right, and
request.
And because there's some work necessary to do that, it's taking a little time to get the
Right.
budget books printed this year, but I guess we're going to get them in the near future, so. okay.
Not sure exactly when, but very shortly.
So when Colburn's under construction next year and this money won't be needed, because.
We'll bring that back to the park committee,
Okay.
and we'll decide what you guys want to do with that at that point.
Always put it towards paying off the pool. Okay.
Well, we'll see what we have.
Yeah.
Okay. Alderman Van
If,
Ness?
when we're built.
Questions at this time?
Anyone else? Alderman Semmel.
Since the council decided to taking down trees on private property when they were dead, for dead trees, I've had several aldermen lament, because guess what? They have a couple problems. And, you know, one of the arguments I thought was just strictly a red herring, really. I didn't think it had any legitimacy to it, but it was constantly talked about, was that there wasn't any money budgeted to do the startup on it. After the council asked the law department to put together, and Mr. Joe Falls, he put together in connection with the Forester, a really good sample ordinance. Well, for whatever reason, we turned it down. And they said, well, you're invading private property. Well, we cut people's grasses, I think Mr. Weary said. If they ask it's too long, we cut it down. And we certainly should be trying to take care of if a dead tree is threatening another property. We should be able to order it down. Most of the time, we're told that people do take it down when they're given a friendly reminder, but there's that 1 out of 10 that may be owned by a real absentee landlord, doesn't even live in the city or something, or by a corporation or something, and they just don't spend money if they don't absolutely have to. And sometimes it's just stubborn people. And we had one person said that, I think we had one number of people said that, well, they like those dead trees for homes for wildlife. Well, I don't know. I still have a couple problems in my district, and a couple others have talked to me that they understood what I was talking about now. And, you know, one of the main arguments, well, we didn't have any money to pay the bill to bring in a contractor to take them down, even though it's added right to the tax bill, and it's first thing paid in the tax bill. People don't pay, they don't pay their tax bill in full, including whatever it costs us to take out a tree. They're paying 1.5% over at the county. So, I mean, I think it's, you know, we should consider if this is really a big problem, that we should. Was there some comment there?
No, she was just
No, I
telling,
was
showing you
just
something.
giving them a thing. No.
Oh,
No, it wasn't
I'm
relative.
sorry. So I feel there should at least be some startup money in there, whether it's 10,000 or 20,000 or something like that, so that I don't see how it affects the budget, because budgets are nothing more than our best guess anyway. And, you know, sometimes you go over, sometimes you come under, and you deal with it at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, you rectify your books. But I think that you ought to consider putting some contingency money in for the possibility of the council maybe willing to start taking down dangerous streets.
Okay. I just want to point
I
out,
have to tell you,
yeah,
I
just want to point
brought
out
it in
that.
before when I had a couple problems. I have another problem, another new problem now.
Mhm.
And it,
Okay, well,
it's
thank
something
you.
that the city could resolve if they had the will to do it.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the item is on our agenda for informational only. It's not asking for any action by the committee tonight to make any recommendations. And, you know, until we get the whole budget, it's really difficult to make any specific
Well, I'd just like you to
recommendation.
put it in your consideration.
So it's just informational. We wanted our director to share, you know, as much information as she could tonight. I do understand that in the whole budget, it's very close to the expenditure restraint limits, again, so that it's probably going to be a situation where you can't add much of anything without cutting somewhere else, so it's going to be that kind of a budget again. But until we get the whole budget, it's really premature to talk about any specific changes.
I just wanted to give that reminder.
Yeah.
That it might be
You bet.
well to put it in.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts? No? If not, I guess we'll ask for a motion to receive and place on file this information.
Receive, place on file.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Vanderleest, seconded by Alderman Weary to receive and place on file the report. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Director's report, we did get a written report. Donnie, you want to give us the highlights?
The tree pruning is occurring in Edison School area on the east side, Martin Luther King on the west side. The concrete walkways at Arneywood Park from the parking lot to the concession stand have now been installed and finished. The contractor has begun work on two new tennis courts and stormwater management at Perkins Park. Construction started on the new parking lot at Seymour Park. The stormwater and the curb cuts have been installed. Windy Park, Dog Park is pretty much completed. We're looking at having a little ceremony maybe around the first week of November, or second week of November. And we're in the mode of setting up for Triangle Hill operation. And that concludes my report.
Okay, any questions?
Is there any problem with the county budget this year on Granville Hill?
Well, as I indicated, we're in the process of them not giving us that $18,000 now because they're going to donate that property to the Parks Department. So that, the problem we always had was whether or not they would pay the $18,000 for that park here. And now, with the property trade, as we brought it to the park committee, it was decided that that's the way we're going to run it, that they're going to donate it, and then that $18,000 would disappear.
What is the land figure worth at?
Over by Triangle Hill.
Is there a value put to that?
How many acres was that again, do you remember?
There's a lot of
It's-
acreage.
Yeah.
That the
Well
county
over 100, 200 acres, and we haven't set a value to it.
Well, every once in a while, it raises its ugly head over there in the county, but in my 42 years there, we have never not included that 18,000. After all, it's the only county park that's even in the city limits. And I don't believe that the county board would cut that out. I think even if they donate some land, maybe, so they say it's not their land, so they don't want to pay. Do we really want the land then?
Yes, we want the land.
I'm sure we'd be happy to continue to receive 18,000 from the county or more if they would decide to do that. But-
Well, what I'm saying is that, you know, let them have the land, let's make sure we have money to operate. Otherwise, it comes on our budget, doesn't it? I think the city should get something towards parks
Yeah.
from the county.
But basically, they're gonna give the land up, is that correct, Dawn? In other words,
Yes.
the county's gonna give the
They're
land.
donating
So
the
the city
land.
will own the property right out.
Right, and so they don't
I
want to pay
understand.
the 18,000 because they're no longer part of
Okay,
it.
so the county's basically washing their hands of it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion to receive and place on file the director's report.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Weary, seconded by Alderman Vanderleest. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. With that, I think we've taken care of our agenda. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Alderman Weary, seconded by Alderman Vanderleest to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie.